There are people from the kind of like the prosperity gospel message. They look at that verse and they see it as a promise that if you're a Christian, that all is going to go well with you. Prophet has a couple different meanings. A lot of times when we hear prophet, we think about somebody who's foretelling the future or speaking directly for God. Yeah, there's also forthtelling. Basically, they're going out and they're teaching stuff that's already known amongst their teachers. We don't want to get so zealous for seeing things that we want done in the church that we lose track of what God's trying to do in the church. James, 1 Peter, 2 Peter, 1 John, 2 John, and 3 John.
I thought we did that already.
3 John, yep.
Because I read Jude this morning.
And I got to write small because I'm running out of room.
Well, we're getting close.
Jude will be next week.
Yeah. They're both really short.
Yeah. 3 John is actually the shortest book in the Bible.
Yeah. It only has 13 verses.
Yep.
14 verses.
So again, this is written by John the Apostle. We've been over this with the other books as well. We're fairly confident that John wrote this, although there are people that will try and debate it. I'm going to say it was probably written from Ephesus. Some people think that it was written from Patmos. I think it was probably written around the same time as 2 John and probably sent out in with the same letter just to a couple different people, but we don't have any proof of that. We're not really sure when it was written. Most people believe it's in the 85 to 95 AD, somewhere in that 10-year window. That's when the book was written. Written to a guy by the name of Gaius. And it was written to encourage him because he's doing some wonderful stuff. We'll read about that. But also to warn him about this guy by the name of Diotrephes. And we'll read about him too. It's a very short book. It's only 13 verses. So let's go ahead and just read it first through, and then we'll go back and talk about it. All right, 3 John, verse 1. The elder, to my dear friend Gaius, whom I love in the truth. Dear friend, I pray that you may enjoy good health, and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well. It gave me great joy when some believers came and testified about your faithfulness to the truth, telling how you continue to walk in it. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in the truth. Dear friend, you are faithful in what you are doing for the brothers and sisters, even though they are strangers to you. They have told the church about your love. Please send them on their way in a manner that honors God. It was for the sake of the name that they went out receiving no help from the pagans. We ought therefore to show hospitality to such people so that we may work together for the truth. I wrote to the church, but Diotrephes, who loves to be first, will not welcome us. So when I come, I will call attention to what he is doing, spreading malicious nonsense about us. Not satisfied with that, he even refuses to welcome other believers. He also stops those who want to do so and puts them out of the church. Dear friend, do not imitate what is evil, but what is good. Anyone who does what is good is from God. Anyone who does what is evil has not seen God. Demetrius is well spoken of by everyone, and even by the truth itself. We also speak well of him, and you know that our testimony is true. I have much to write to you, but I do not want to do so with pen and ink. I hope to see you soon, and we will talk face to face. Peace to you. The friends here send their greetings. Greet the friends there by name. And that is the end of it. It's a short little, seems almost like a personal letter from John to Gaius. And Gaius is actually a fairly common name. I think we see him pop up in Acts and a few other places. And they don't know if this is the same Gaius or if it's someone totally different. Verse 2 there, it says, Dear friend, I pray that you may enjoy good health and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well. There are people from the kind of like the prosperity gospel message, they look at that verse and they see it as a promise that if you're Christian, that all is going to go well with you. And everybody's, yeah, people know that have been Christians for a while, that not everything goes well if you're a Christian. But there is a thought out there, and they come back to this verse. That's not what he's saying. He's just, it's a warm greeting. It's almost like a common saying for them, live long and be happy. So let's go on down to verse 5. Dear friend, you are faithful in what you are doing for the brothers and sisters, even though they are strangers to you. They have told the church about your love. Please send them on their way in a manner that honors God. So there was, in 2 John, we read about some false prophets that were running around, and he was telling, don't have anything to do with these people. But at the same time, they were supposed to help the good prophets, if you will, the people that were actually being sent from the church or from the apostles, what have you. They were supposed to help them. And there were like itinerant missionaries, if you will. And the only way they could really travel was to get support from people as they went through the different villages. Now, this doesn't mean that they were supposed to go in there and then leave with their hands full of cash and stuff. What they actually were supposed to do.
Now, who are they that you were talking about?
The early Christians. So if you were an early Christian and somebody came to your village and claimed to be a prophet or an apostle or something like that, you could test them to see if they actually were, if you didn't know them. And if they were truth, if they were following the truth in the way, then you're supposed to treat them a certain way.
Like take them in and feed them?
Yeah. There was a letter circulated around called the Didache, and I actually have excerpts from it here. And there's a part on how you treat apostles and prophets. It says, regarding apostles and prophets, act according to the instruction of the gospel. Let every apostle who comes to you be received as the Lord, but he shall stay only one day, and a second day in case of special need. If he stays for 3 days, he's a false prophet. When the apostle goes away, let him receive only bread to suffice until he finds his next lodging. If he asks for money, he's a false prophet. You must neither test nor examine a prophet who speaks in the Spirit, for every sin shall be forgiven, but not this sin. But not everyone who speaks in the Spirit is a prophet. He's only a prophet if he has the ways of the Lord. The false and the genuine prophets will be known, therefore, by their ways.
So when it's saying prophet in that context, do you think back then it was like they were kind of like pastors?
Yeah.
You could hear from God.
So prophet has a couple different meanings. A lot of times when we hear prophet, we think about somebody who's foretelling the future or speaking directly for God.
Like in the Old Testament.
Yeah. There's also forthtelling, where basically they're going out and they're teaching stuff that's already known amongst their teachers, basically. They're preachers.
Spreading the good news.
Right. Those would be considered as prophets as well.
Today's prophets.
Yeah.
So in the New Testament, are there prophets like there was in the Old Testament?
Yeah.
Oh.
There were. There's a lot of debate nowadays whether that's still going on. There's a group called the cessationists who believe that these gifts of the Spirit, like prophecy and healing, raising from the dead, and all that, ended with the apostles. There's other groups like your Pentecostals who believe that all the spirits are all the gifts are still alive and well in the church, and so they can have prophets and people doing miracle healings and that sort of thing. Anyway, so if a prophet came to your house, you're supposed to treat him for a day. Basically, just help him to survive. You weren't supposed to give them like extra stuff if they asked for it. I suppose a gift out of your own goodwill is fine, but if you give him enough bread to get to the next city and he's there with his hand out still, then he's probably a false prophet. He's just there to get something out of you. Or if he's crashing on your couch for more than 3 days, then he's probably not a prophet. He's just living off you. You're enabling him.
Being a
I like
couch
it.
potato.
Right, yeah,
Kind of like an evangelist.
Yeah.
They come to your house, they spend the night.
Yep.
You feed them chicken and they keep going ahead.
yeah. You've done it before, huh?
Uh-huh.
Haven't you? Yeah.
I've done that before with people traveling around, music groups and stuff like that. I have a hard time with the ones that are talking about how expensive it is to set up their shows or what have you, and then they want a certain amount of money for the show. And I really have a hard time with that. But the guy that comes through, maybe sharing a word or something like that, off the side, if they don't take an offering for him, I'll give them like $20. This will give you enough gas to get your next sound or what have you. So notice the contrast here between Gaius, though, and Diotrephes. So verse 9, I wrote to the church, but Diotrephes, who loves to be first, will not welcome us. So when I come, I will call attention to what he is doing, spreading malicious nonsense about us. Not satisfied with that, he even refuses to welcome other believers. He also stops those who want to do so and puts them out of the church. So apparently this guy has some kind of authority in a church. It's probably a house church or something. But John was sending these messengers to this area. And instead of him taking them in, feeding them or whatever for the night, he was not doing that. And not only that, he was excommunicating or kicking people out of the church that were trying to help him.
He didn't want his evil deeds to come to light. He didn't want people around that were actually
Very true.
from God.
Well, he wanted to be the leader, he wanted to be the one in charge.
Right. And there's people like that, even today. It's all about them. They want to be at the head of everything. They want it to be about them. And when the focus gets off of them, they get upset.
I think that's called narcissist.
Yeah, it is.
Right. Does anybody have a beer?
Yeah, really.
And it's actually fairly common in the church today. I laughed when I first heard this. I had to look it up to see if it was true. So there's a theologian. His name is A.T. Robertson. He knew Greek, and he did an expository on Diotrephes here. He submitted it to a denominational newsletter. About 2 weeks later, the editor of that newsletter had 25 letters from deacons who were canceling their subscription because they felt personally attacked by this expose. And I started laughing. It's like, well, if the shoe fits, I don't know.
Right.
If you're trying to control the church, maybe there's an issue there. So yeah, it still goes on. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to get so zealous for seeing things that we want done in the church that we lose track of what God's trying to do with the church.
And we should always be trying to bring in other people, right?
Yeah. And we don't need to be judgmental about it either when they come through the doors. We have no idea what's going on in that person's life when they come through the door. So do, friend, verse 11, do not imitate what is evil, but what is good. Anyone who does what is good is from God, and anyone who does what is evil has not seen God. This isn't talking about a one-time thing where if a person does one thing that's good, they're from God. Although a case may be made for that, in that only good things come from God. But what this is saying is a person that's continually in this. If they're continually doing good, like Gaius, and showing love to the people that are coming through, that's from God. If they're continually being evil and rejecting the truth and these people that are coming through, that's not from God. In verse 12, talks about this guy named Demetrius. He's well spoken of by everyone. I'd just like to have your name go down in history as someone who's just been well spoken of by everyone. Thousands of years later, we know that this Demetrius was a good guy. That's really cool. And that is actually all I have for 3 John. You guys have any questions?
Well, it's very much like that's the song that we sing. Demetrius might be a real good guy and do everything right, but it doesn't sound like he has love at all.
Right, and that was convicting. Those 2 first songs were convicting for me because it's so easy for me to love people that are kind and nice and, you know,
Mhm.
but it's hard for me to love people that I don't get along with.
That rub you the wrong
And
way or
that's-
whatever.
and God, that's what we're supposed to do, is love everybody,
Yeah.
and it's hard.
Hard.
And we need to remember too that this love that we're talking about isn't the warm fuzzies. We're not supposed to feel warm fuzzies when we're around these people that rub us the wrong way, but we're supposed to still treat everybody with kindness and compassion, even when they do, make you cringe when you walk by them.
You try to hide from them so you don't have to talk to them.
Yeah. And Justin's dog, she's got this telltale, no pun intended, that whenever she's getting excited about something, her hair stands up on her back. And we can know that she's getting anxious about something. I think people are like that sometimes. You walk by and kind of feel like all your hair is standing on end. It's like, we're still supposed to love those people as well.
Right.
All right.
I remind myself that, God, he took his time with everybody and made us, and he loved all of us so much, but I'm judgmental over people, and I need to get over that.
That I find myself doing that sometimes. I don't know where it comes from, but a thought will go through my head and I'll kind of stop there. It's like, wait a minute, that was way judgmental. I should not have even thought that.
It was like I had to share that post on Facebook. I thought it was so funny, but it said, people are so judgmental, you can tell just by looking at them.
Yeah, right.
Just by looking at them.